All right, I think we are live. All right, guys, I think that we are live, which is really, really cool. You guys probably won't be used to seeing me. My name is Glenn Mackintosh. I've just taken over the BN Facebook page for the moment. So I think that we are all live. What's happened is we've had a few tech issues and we couldn't quite resolve those issues. Jackie's just sent me all the details, and I've just taken over the page. So I'm just getting my bearings around this. So let's all kind of get our bearings as well, and we'll make sure that I can see your comments. Make sure that everything's happening kind of as it should. Now I also have my tech whiz Emma here, so she can help me if need be. Are we good? Because I can't seem to see anyone's comments or anything, which I think is cool for now, but I wouldn't mind being able to. This will be good too, so it'll give us all a chance to kind of get into the live. I know we're a little bit late for you guys. So let me open this page. And I'm just going to make sure I can find a way so I can get into I can hopefully see everyone's comments and everything. So just bear with us for a couple of minutes, guys, because I think oh yep, I've got myself saying this is Emma from Glenn's team. Yep, there's my Emma, so she's with us. So that's good. I think I've got it now. It might be a little bit of a delay, but we can get it so we can. I can actually see your guys' comments and everything. So just checking how many people are with us. Ah, yes, perfect. Now I can actually see the little comments. What I'm going to do is just switch anything off. I think we are good to go, guys. So if you're with us, please say hello. And I think we've got a really, really cool topic to talk about today. So we might get started. Um, Today we wanted to talk about overcoming emotional eating. So I know that Jackie's been talking with you about the importance of establishing routines, and I think that is so important. I think that this is a time where probably for all of us our routines are changing, and whether we like it or not, or whether we think of ourselves as people of routine, we are kind of creatures of habit. So I think it's such an important time for us to be, while our routines are naturally changing, to be guiding the change of those routines. I know that Jackie's also been talking to you about setting up your food and your homework environment, and I think that's so important as well. The food environment is such an important thing, but it's even more important at a time like this when we're all spending so much time at home. So let's. Oh, hello, Glenda, Lana Dutzy. How are you? Good to see you. And please, guys, I always like, as you'll learn about me, I'm a big talker, but I always like to talk with you guys. So if you have a thought or a question or something, please please just post it up there. And what I'll do is Emma, who's my tech whiz, she's going to jump on here, and she often helps people out with little things. I might talk about certain things, and she'll give you some answers. So, hello, Claudia. How you doing? How's your day gone? Um, so I think that she'll be in there in the comments section helping us out too. So if there are any questions about anything, let's talk as we go. So emotional eating. Emotional eating is such an important thing to talk about for post bariatric surgery people. We do know that emotional eaters tend to be more likely to binge after they have surgery, and then people who binge tend to get less weight loss, but also run a much higher risk of weight regain. And overall, we know that emotional eaters aren't as satisfied with their results post surgery, especially when we go in the long term, like the 2 to 7 year mark post surgery. So really important thing to work on it. It is one of those things that the surgery doesn't tend to fix. There are a lot of things that surgery will really help with, but emotional eating tends to be one of those things that we kind of have to sort of sort out ourselves. Um, as a starting point, I think a good way to think about it is that emotional eating, I think a lot of people think of it as a food problem. Um, but emotional eating, I'd like you to start to think about more, or at least think about thinking about it as an emotion management problem. So when you're having these pulls to emotionally eat and you're not physically hungry, you tend to think I've got a bit of a challenge here with my eating, but I would encourage you to think about it that it may be a challenge in managing your emotions. And of course, as we all know, food really helps you resolve those emotions. I like to think that there's no nutritional solution for an emotional problem. And we've all had that experience where we're feeling some type of discomfort, whether we're sad or lonely or stressed or whatever it is. And then we've eaten as a response to that, and you might feel like a temporary improvement in how you feel, but then afterwards those feelings come back. Often they come back and you end up feeling worse because you've just done something that's kind of out of line with your food values. So that would be the first point of call here, is to sort of think that we're not really trying to work on a food problem if you're having these emotional eating urges. We're really trying to address the underlying problem, which is an emotion problem. So I think that at this time, let's sort of talk about emotion management in the context of this really difficult and strange and unprecedented time that we're going through now. And a couple of thoughts on how we can manage our emotions well at this time are firstly, I think it's really, really important that we manage the inputs. Hello, Mon Mon. I think it's really important that we manage the inputs and what we're feeding our brain. So now is a time where we're just getting so much information. Of course, information is really important for us. We need to be able to know what's happening and what to do. But too much of that can just make us too emotional, and can be too much of a trigger for emotional eating and just unpleasant emotions in general. So the first thing I would encourage everyone to be mindful of is to be aware of what's coming into your mind. And I'm talking about in terms of media and in terms of social media. So some things you can do there would be to limit your social media, even sort of unfollow or snooze some people who tend to be talking about this all the time, especially if what they're saying is very triggering or anxiety provoking for you. And then a really good idea that's been working for a lot of my clients is just to rather than have the news on all day, which can make this COVID-19 situation just seem more all-consuming than it already is to just have media check-in times. And maybe you could pull up from that email that we had the guy that we gave to our guys. The Australian Psychological Society just recommends that you go to the government website if you're looking for information, because of course you do need information. So that would be one thing I would definitely do, is I would manage the inputs. The other side of that is to give yourself some. Oh, just got a little comment. Just to give yourself some positive inputs. So it's obviously can be a time where we feel a bit isolated and a bit disconnected, and of course it's a really good time where we can use this online connection we have and really ramp that up. So some places to go would obviously be to the BN multi group. There's a lot of good support, and I've just become accustomed to that group. A couple of guys from my group have joined that and are really enjoying it. So you can go to that group for support as a positive input. You can go to my Facebook group. It's the Psychology of Eating, Movement, Weight and Body Image Support Group. And Em, could you please put that one up? Because I'm sure that people are not going to remember that. So you could go to Jackie's group, you could go to my group. And there's been a really cool group that I was talking about with a client, Penny, today. She said it's fine to use her name. She might even be in the chat. It's called the Kindness Pandemic group. And so you can look up the kindness pandemic, and it's a wonderful group that's really sharing some. It doesn't ignore the reality of this problem, that it is a problem that of the scope that probably none of us have ever seen or experienced before, but it does share some real warm and fuzzies and a really nice lens through which to look at this problem. So there'd be a couple of places, and that'd be the first thing I would look to do in this time is really manage your inputs. And I'm just going to come and check any of the questions. Oh, yep. Jackie said, I love that group. It's a really cool group, that Kindness Pandemic group. So maybe we can even find that one as well. It was just when my client introduced me to it today, I'm like, oh, this just straight away. It was in the middle of a Skype session, and I just had a little quick look as we were talking. I thought, oh, it just really does give you a really nice feel, which I think we all kind of need at this time. So that'd probably be my first tip, is just to manage the inputs and protect yourself. So create a barrier from those things that you find too triggering or anxiety provoking. Make sure you're getting your news from factual places and limiting even the amount of news that you take in, maybe looking at the government website, and then looking to some more positive ways that you can connect through your feed, so you're getting some more positive inputs. The second thing that I would really look at is an idea that I call emotional hygiene. So we talked a little bit about habits, and I think Jackie's been helping you get into some healthy habits. And the idea of emotional hygiene is about developing habits or practices that take care of your emotional well-being every day. So not having to wait till you're depressed or till you're tearing your hair out to go, oh, I need to manage my feelings, but to actually manage your feelings every day. And I think hygiene is a great way to think about it. So, we don't wait until our teeth are all furry and falling out before we brush them. We just brush them every day so they don't get too furry. And the same with our bodies. We don't wait till we're really smelly and all dirty to have a shower. We shower regularly so we stay nice and clean. And so I don't want to prescribe to you what you do for emotional hygiene, but thinking about even just one practice, one new habit that you can start to put into your day. So as someone who has a background in exercise psychology, I know how awesome physical movement can be for your body. And if I could just share one thing on moving your body as an emotional hygiene strategy, I would just say that we actually have research to show that you can get mental health benefits. So a reduction in your stress, more mental clarity, a bit of a boost in your mood, with just 6 minutes of physical activity. So that's a lot less than you need to lose weight or get fit. And so if we're thinking about movement as an emotion management strategy, something you do for your mood, I think that it's good to know that you don't necessarily have to do a super hard slog or do an hour exercise to get the mental health benefits. We know that you can start to get the mental health benefits in just 6 minutes. And of course, there are a million other strategies, and it might be interesting to see if there's anyone listening to see what they like to do for emotional hygiene. I've suggested physical activity, but it could be meditation, yoga practice. It could be as simple as sitting in the bath or reading a book or anything that makes you feel good. But that idea of trying to turn that into a habit for yourself, so it becomes like an emotional management strategy that you're using before the stress or the upset or whatever the feeling is gets so high, that then you're really, going to the fridge, going to the pantry, and you sort of hit that stage where it's almost a bit too late. So it'd be interesting to hear from you guys. Oh yeah, Jackie said atomic habits, the things we do every day that amount to an overall picture. Yeah, I think that makes so much sense, that sometimes the littlest things. So if you're thinking of some emotional hygiene habits, you don't have to go crazy. Life is hard enough, especially now. We don't need to make our personal change efforts even harder. I think that the final thing that I'd encourage you to think about would be to, once you're managing your inputs and making sure you're taking in the good and shielding yourself from the stuff that you're finding is making you too emotional, and then once you've got some emotional hygiene, some regular everyday self-care or emotional care happening, the next thing I would do would be to really look at those situations that are triggering you. So if you're finding that you're not hungry, you're feeling satisfied with your general way of eating, but you're having these pulls that have nothing to do with your body's hunger or your need for nutrition, is just actually asking yourself that question: is this about food, or is this about mood? And if your body's not hungry, you're satisfied with your general way of eating, but you're still looking to eat, then you're probably going to find that that's underneath that there's an emotional craving. And so there it comes down to, firstly, trying to acknowledge, what are you feeling? And that can be sometimes really challenging. It's like you don't really know what you're feeling. Sometimes it can be really easy, just with asking yourself, how am I feeling, and just checking in with yourself, you will find an answer. And then it comes back to that idea of understanding that you don't have a food problem there. The problem is that there's some unpleasant feeling that you need to find a way to resolve. And food is probably not going to do that, because remember, there's no nutritional solution for an emotional problem. So what we need to do is find a better coping strategy. I call these coping strategies more marvelous methods to manage your moods. We need to find a new way of managing. And so, for example, if we look at some of the feelings that we might be feeling at this time, if we're feeling isolated, for example, maybe we need some social connection. If we're feeling uncertain, which is a feeling I'm sure a lot of us are feeling, maybe we need to make a plan to control all of those things that we can control. If we're, like, for example, yesterday I was just like a bit antsy. I've been cooped up in the house for so long. And I thought, what am I feeling? I'm feeling like this energy needs to burn. And so I did some exercise in my house. Thank God no one saw me. I would have looked like a total weirdo. But I just felt like that's what I needed at the time. I had all this pent up energy and I'm sort of cooped up, and that was a way to deal with that. So it comes from that sort of two-step process of asking yourself, what am I feeling right now, and how can I deal with or resolve or manage that feeling. If you get stuck, one way to do it is to think of your inner child. Psychologists sometimes talk of this idea of your inner child. So thinking about, okay, if I was a child, what would I be feeling right now? What's that child inside of me feeling? And if a child was feeling that way, if they were feeling sad or uncertain or stressed or lonely, then how would I comfort them? How would I help them deal with that emotion? And often the same answer will apply to you as an adult, because of course, even as adults, we still have that inner child, that emotional part of us that needs that nurturance. So I think that's really all I kind of wanted to say. It's a very, very quick crash course on managing your emotions and nurturing your inner self. So what I might do now is I might go to and see if there's any comments or questions that we can have a little chat about. So Mon Mon says, I'm struggling feeding my children 6 to 8 times a day and not eating for comfort when it's always in my face. Usually I'm so busy I forget about food until I'm hungry, but not now because you're thinking about food all the time. We've been walking every day, but too much food is killing me. So, Mom, that's a really interesting one, um, because there's something in there that said not eating for comfort. So, what I would ask myself, and I don't have the answer because I'm not you, but I think that we often have the answers inside, is what, when you say comfort, comfort's a really broad word, and I think it fits. We all talk about comfort eating, but what is the type of comfort that I need? Do I need a calming type of comfort, or do I need some reassurance that everything's going to be okay, or do I need some resilience to help me deal with this very different situation? And that's what I'd be asking myself, is to break down comfort and get that stage of what type of emotional comfort am I experiencing? And it's interesting because your situation seems to fit that this is something that you want to change. So it's obvious that the the food isn't actually resolving that emotion. So part of it is just because the food's there in your face, but there's part of it that you might need some type of comfort. And so would be what I would ask myself is, what type of comfort do I need? What does my inner child need at the moment? And how can I, as well as caring for my children, care for my inner child? And often if you ask a question, that answer is there for you. So, guys, I think that's been. Oh, actually, Lou said, if you have a problem with emotional eating most of your life, does this mean you shouldn't get the surgery because it's less likely to be successful? I think, Lou, that is an excellent question. What I would say is I do feel as if, most bariatric surgeons recognize the importance nowadays of working with a dietitian. If they don't, then you should be working with a surgeon who recognizes the importance of the dietitian, but then also with the psychologist. So I would definitely say that uh, not necessarily. So if you were asking me this question, Lou, in a session, I would say that being an emotional eater certainly doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't undergo the surgery process. But what it does mean is that it is very likely, if we look into research, to put a spanner in the works of your long-term success and mean that you're not as happy with your results and you don't get as many of the mental or physical health benefits. So we should really, really look to manage emotional eating as part of your so I suppose your whole journey through the surgery process. So it wouldn't necessarily mean that it would be something that you wouldn't do. But if I was in a session with you and you just asked that question, I would probably say what we need to do is we need to work through this emotional eating and learn new ways to resolve your emotions. Otherwise, you're going to be much more likely to binge or try and cheat your surgery, sort of make your way around your surgery, and then you're going to put a spanner in the works of it and not get as good results. So, not necessarily something that would say don't do this, but something that would say, yeah, maybe if all of the other factors are right, yes, look into it and go ahead with it, but we need to, as part of it, create some new strategies to manage your mood, and that's where it's working with that's where the psychologist really sort of comes into play. Oh, Momon said, thank you, very helpful. I'm glad. It's a funny thing trying to do this kind of almost like therapy through a format like this, but I'm glad that was useful. Mandy says, I don't think about food, but I do tend to want something sweet every day. I take magnesium as I heard that it's supposed to help. What can I do to stop wanting this feeling? And that's a really good question, Mandy. And I think that one thing that, if you feel like it's possibly an emotional eating craving, is you could ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? So what emotions am I trying to resolve through food? Or you could ask yourself, if I don't eat, what unpleasant emotions are going to come up, because the food might be protecting you from unpleasant emotions. And then again, ask, what does my inner child need, and how could I service that in a non-food way? Um, Sometimes these things can be emotional, but sometimes they can also just be habitual. And especially with sweet foods, we do know that these type of foods are create really powerful cravings. Um, and they do kind of addict a part of the brain that kind of circumnavigates our hunger and fullness signals, and sometimes that can play into that addiction loop in our brain, and create some cravings that are more habitual rather than emotional. So it can be very difficult to tease apart sometimes emotional eating and habitual eating. But one thing I would actually say is just popped into my head, because there is a technique, I don't know if you've heard of it, Mandy, called tapping or emotional freedom techniques. Um, and we just, funnily enough, we just finished creating a little free resource where you can give tapping a go to reduce your food cravings, and particularly for sweet foods. So tapping is a wonderful technique that you can use to reduce, that's scientifically shown to reduce food cravings, and it tends to reduce them forever. And that reduction is associated with a little bit more weight loss, emotional well-being, and less of a dieting mentality. So actually being able to eat well without thinking so hard. So Em, would you be able to put up for all of us the link to the free resource where you can tap away a food craving? So you got it for that one. You got to put your email address in. But we just send you out a bit of a crash course on the tapping technique, so you can learn all about it, and then a video on how you actually tap through a sweet craving. So that can be really good. I'm just going to go back to see if there's any questions or comments. I think that's been a really good chat, guys. Um, I don't know if there's anything else. I might just wait to see if there's any other little comments or questions that come through. Thank you so much for putting up with the technical difficulties. I think that sometimes this is just something we just got to kind of work through. Um, yeah, Mandy, check it out. So I can see Emma's jumped on my Facebook and added the link there. So yeah, just check it out, because it can be really powerful. And tapping is a great technique for emotional food cravings as well as habitual food cravings, and often they kind of intertwine themselves with each other. Guys, thank you so much, and hopefully this hasn't played too badly for you just in this normal Facebook streaming. We did have another solution, but that didn't quite work out this time. Um, and we'll make sure that we can keep up um, this video so anyone can watch it later on. So Momon just asked, what is tapping and how do you learn it? So Momon, if you go to that link on the free resource and tapping that Emma's put up under my Glenn Mackintosh page, you'll actually get an email where you can learn all about the tapping, the theory, the science, and actually give it a go, which would be a really perfect way to learn. There's a little bit to it, but the whole email is designed to help you understand it and then know enough to give it a go. So thank you, Jackie, for having me and letting me take over your Facebook. And I think that would be, there's a lot of information we've talked about, but I would really just think about firstly, emotional eating is important to tackle. So I'm sure that you know that. I would think, you know what, there isn't a food problem here. There's a mood problem if we've got emotional eating pools. And then I would think to, in this time, manage the inputs. I would think to practice a bit of emotional hygiene. And then if you're still getting these emotional eating pools, ask yourself, is this about food or is this about mood? Take a breath, connect with that inner child, and think, what is the inner child feeling and how can I meet that inner child's needs and help them deal with their emotions food free. And I think if you just take one or two of these ideas and have a play around with them, we'll be in a better spot. So thank you guys so much. And I will look forward to more of these. Jackie and I are having some awesome chats, so I'm sure that we'll get together more in the future.